Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into college sports. My guest today is Tanner Gardner. He is the athletic director for Pepperdine University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. It's great to be with you today, and I'm grateful you chose to have me on the show.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where they went to college. So, where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I went to Stanford University. Just to back up ever so slightly, I'm originally from Kansas and never had any plans to go to Stanford. In fact, I'd never been to California. I was a wrestler in high school, and I ended up having some good success middle to late high school. And because of that, I started to get some letters from universities about wrestling there. One of those universities was Stanford, which was very intriguing to me given the academic prowess of the institution. Um, and so I was fortunate to get offered a wrestling scholarship there. I took a recruiting trip out there and really just had a tremendous and transformational 5 years there in Palo Alto.
So, let's just go back in time before we get started. When did it all start to come to you in high school? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year? When did people start recruiting you? Give me a sense of, how it all happened for you in high school.
Yeah, great question. Now, mind you, this was 25 years ago, so it was a little bit different then. Um, but I probably didn't really start thinking about, I knew I wanted to go to college, but I didn't start thinking about uh, exactly where I'd want to go probably till sophomore, junior year. And it was really during my junior year that I started to get recruited and started to get serious about looking at colleges. I had two older siblings who had gone to college, and so that provided a bit of a framework, and education was always important in our family. And so, I was able to make good grades, but it really wasn't until my junior year when I started getting letters and started to seriously consider where I might go to college.
So now you said Stanford. Um, did you have other schools to pick from, or was Stanford it?
I did. I had a number of schools that were recruiting me. The NCAA rules at that time were that you could take visits to five colleges. I ended up taking visits to three, one being the University of Missouri, which is proximal to where I grew up, the closest Division I school that had wrestling. The second was Columbia University in New York City, and the third was Stanford. And so I took recruiting visits to all three of those schools. I looked at a number of other schools, but actually visited those three and ultimately felt like Stanford was the best fit and place for me to be.
So now you're at Stanford University. Tell me a little bit about the school, what it was like to be a wrestler there, what it's like to be a student there.
Yeah, I mean, really, Stanford is an exceptional place. I mean, coming from Kansas, I grew up in a very homogenous environment. And I went to a place of Stanford that was a very diverse environment. I think maybe at that time, 50% of the students were from California, 50% were not. 50% of the university was minority, and 50% of the university was not. And so it's a very, very diverse population that, frankly, I didn't grow up with. And so it was an experience that really opened my eyes to the world. And I was kind of exposed to things that I never had experienced growing up in Kansas. And so in that way, it was a really special experience and it grew me a lot. And it just, even outside the classroom, taught me so many things. As it pertains to being a wrestler there, Stanford at that time and in many ways still is the gold standard in college athletics when you think about comprehensive success. And so, to be able to compete for an athletic department that, had won over 100 national championships at that point and, had multiple Olympians that were my fellow student athletes, just being around that excellence was incredible and, pushed me to be a better student athlete myself.
Right. So now you graduate from Stanford University. How does one go from graduating there and becoming the athletic director at Pepperdine University?
Oh, a very circuitous route. Part of my experience at Stanford was just the transformation that I went through, and whether that was academically, personally, athletically, and spiritually, I really felt coming out of my 5 years there that it had changed my life, and I really wanted to give back to Stanford. And I thought the way that I was going to do that was financially, and so I wanted to work in the business world and become a CEO and be successful and give back to them. And so I ended up going into management consulting for a company called the Boston Consulting Group. I did that for a couple of years, and my intent had always been to go to business school. And so, about a year and a half into BCG, I was working on my business school applications, and I was applying to a number of schools. And one of the questions in this case for Harvard Business School was, "What do you want to do with your life and why?" was kind of the main essay prompt. And so, I took some time to do some soul searching to really think about that question as a 25-year-old. And I took out a piece of paper. This was in July 2009, and I wrote down the things that I was passionate about that were meaningful to me. And I felt like I received a word from God that I should work in college athletics. And I had never really considered that as a career path, even though I had been a student athlete. And so I actually wrote my essay to HBS about wanting to become an athletic director and to provide the same experience for student athletes that I was afforded during my time at Stanford. Was fortunate to be admitted to Harvard Business School. I ended up working for my former athletic director, Bob Bowlesby, at Stanford the summer before I went. Um, I kind of really pursued this idea of working in college athletics during my time at HBS and kind of attuned my studies to that. Did an internship at Nike during my time there. And I didn't find any specific opportunities that fit me coming out of HBS. And so I went back to the Boston Consulting Group, but through some connections that I had made during my time at HBS and kind of in this pursuit of potentially working in college athletics, I had met a gentleman named Joe Carlgard, who had been at Stanford. He got the job as the athletic director at Rice in 2013, and he called me up and asked me if I wanted to come work with him. And so in 2014, I joined him. My wife and I did. We moved to Houston, and I spent 10 years there. Serving in a number of different roles, but most recently the deputy athletic director overseeing the business side of the department. And then I guess it would have been just almost a year actually to the day. I got a call from Pepperdine about going there to be the athletic director. And, I think it's really important when you're thinking about jobs is to think about the type of institution or organization that you want to work at. And for me, Pepperdine was and is just really the perfect place. A smaller, high academic private school that wants to be excellent in everything they do, including athletics. And as a faith-based person working at a university that's is a Christian university and really lives into that as part of who we are. That was very attractive to me. And so I accepted the job as the athletic director at Pepperdine in late March of last year and started officially on June 1st. So I'm just about a little over 9 months in and really enjoying what I'm doing.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So now you're at Pepperdine. Give me a sense of the school and what you actually do as the athletic director there.
Yeah, Pepperdine is an incredible place. Our vision as an institution is to be the preeminent global Christian institution. Um, and we really live into that and we want to be excellent in the things that we do. And if you come to our campus, you would really feel that ethos. We have a visionary president in Jim Gash who is really pushing the envelope on growing our university. I think if you came to our university, you'd experience radical hospitality and kindness that I really hadn't experienced anywhere else. I was fortunate to be at Stanford and Harvard and Rice, where there were just really great people. But the kindness and the hospitality that you experience at a school like Pepperdine is just different. We have strong academics, small class sizes, which is really attractive. We're a tight community where people know each other. We're 3,500 undergraduate. We have strong international programs. And so something that's very unique about Pepperdine is that I think most of our students go abroad at one point or another. I think we have 7 campuses worldwide where students go abroad either for a semester or even a full year. And so I think we offer just a really unique and distinct educational and community environment. Not to mention I believe, the most beautiful campus in America. As it pertains to me, I think athletics is also a big part of who we are. We have an exceptional athletics program. We've won 14 national championships. Many schools haven't won any national championships. We've won 14. I think we've won around 240 conference championships. We've had 60 Olympians. And so excellence is really in the ethos of what we do here. As an athletic director, I think first and foremost, my job is to provide our student athletes with a transformational experience, which is something I'm very passionate about based off my background. So I think first and foremost, a student athlete is at the center of what we do. Our vision in athletics is to be a championship athletics program fueled by Christian values, academic excellence, and community. And we do that in the most beautiful place in America. And, for those of you who follow college athletics, it's changing more than ever right now. And, I think schools that have unique and distinct value propositions in this environment are the type of schools that are going to win. I would say the same thing about higher education in general. And I think at Pepperdine, we offer something incredibly unique and we do it the best. Um, and so I think it's great to be a student at Pepperdine. And I think it's great to be a student athlete at Pepperdine and to be able to lead the department is terrific.
Now, as a student athlete coming to Pepperdine, what should they expect? So, if I'm a freshman, no matter what the sport is, uh, what is that freshman going to expect when they first get onto campus? Do they get onto campus in August? Do they get on in September? How does it all start for them?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what sport you're in. Some of our student athletes would even come as soon as the summer to begin training. But I would say most of them would arrive in August to begin their training and academic studies. I think what they should expect, back to my point around what I experienced at Pepperdine and kind of this radical hospitality and kindness. I think they would say, I can't believe people are really this nice. Is it real? And I'm like, I thought the same thing on my interview, and yes, it is. I think they would experience a high touch experience where we're not a big school. We're a small school where we value a higher touch experience. So they're going to have deeper relationships. They're going to know people up to the president. Our president speaks to every one of our athletic programs and teams before the season. He's around at every game if he's on campus. And I think that's just kind of instructive of the total experience for our student athletes. I think they're going to be challenged. We expect a lot. We call our student athletes to be great in the classroom in their field of competition, and we call them to be great people consistent with our Christian values. And so I think we want to develop the whole person, not just the student, not just the athlete, not just the person. We want to do it all. And I think you would experience that approach pretty quickly in your time at Pepperdine as an athlete.
So now give the audience a sense, where is Pepperdine University in California, and what's the atmosphere like there?
Yeah, it's in the greater Los Angeles area. It's, 30 minutes or an hour north of the airport. So it's kind of on the north side of Los Angeles, I guess between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. In many ways, people think about Los Angeles and they immediately think big, big city, which, to be sure, it is a big city. But Pepperdine and is in Malibu, which in many ways is kind of like a small town north of Los Angeles. And so, people think about Los Angeles and Malibu and, oh, that's a big city. But, the experience I think that you have in Pepperdine and Malibu in many ways is more like a small town environment, which I think makes it a lot of fun. Of course, you can see in my background, if you're watching this on video, that we are a city on a hill. We overlook the ocean. It is an incredible campus. You should be ready to walk a lot of hills because it is hilly. But it's an incredibly beautiful place that God has blessed us with, and particularly if you like the outdoors, there's so many things to do, from hiking in the Santa Monica Mountains to going to the beach, um, to going in LA to that extent. It's a really special place.
Now, what are some of the schools that the teams that play against?
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's start with our conference, which is the West Coast Conference, which is a number of other, I guess, selective private faith-based schools. So University of San Diego, Loyola Marymount, St. Mary's, Santa Clara. So those are the types of schools that we're competing against in our conference. Out of conference, because we have such successful athletic programs, we're competing against all the schools in the country. We're competing against major state institutions in the Southeastern Conference, SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12. Our men's tennis team just hosted Vanderbilt for a tennis match yesterday, beat them. Our women's tennis team is playing against Pac-12 schools, Cal and Stanford. They just beat Cal at home recently. Our women's tennis team is playing against the big Pac-12 schools, UCLA, who they beat earlier this year, USC. So we compete nationally because we are a competitively successful program from a national standpoint, but then on a conference standpoint, we're competing against what I would describe as more kind of like-minded small institutions.
Now, a lot of families always talk about cost of college. What does Pepperdine University do to help student athletes come to school there?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, we offer athletic scholarships. And so, when I think about my experience, I would have never gone to Stanford if I didn't get an athletic scholarship. And so athletic scholarships are a pathway to life change. It changed my life. If I didn't go to Stanford, if I didn't have wrestling, I wouldn't have gone to Stanford. If I didn't go to Stanford, I wouldn't have worked at BCG. If I wouldn't have worked at BCG, wouldn't have gone to Harvard. If I wouldn't have went to Harvard, I wouldn't have been the athletic director at Rice. And if I didn't go to Rice, I wouldn't have been the athletic director at Princeton or at Pepperdine. And so I just think athletic scholarships can really lead to life transformation. And, a handful of our student athletes in particular are first generation college students. And so we are literally changing the trajectory of their whole family and impacting generations. And so I think athletic scholarships are a powerful tool to allow these student athletes to come to our university. In addition to that, Pepperdine offers generous merit aid for whether it be academic and or I guess extracurricular or Christian values type accolades. And then beyond that, we offer need-based financial aid as well. And so, on one hand, college is expensive, but on the other hand, we always want to make it work for our students with financial aid.
And now with NIL as a big thing at colleges these days, what does Pepperdine do to enhance that for the student athlete?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I think uh, NIL is one of the first things I get asked in most discussions these days. And so NIL is a very complex topic. It's been around, I guess, for 4 or 5 years now. I think giving student athletes the opportunity to monetize their name, image, and likeness is great. And so we want to provide student athletes the opportunity to do that. We want to equip them with the tools to build their brand and connect with brands to help do that, should they want to do that. I would say at Pepperdine, though, that's not something we lead with. There are schools that lead with that, but back to what I said earlier, I think we have a unique and distinct value proposition and something we do the best at, which is to be a championship athletics program fueled by Christian values, academic excellence, and community in the most beautiful place in America. And so that's why people should want to come to Pepperdine. And if that's why they want to come to Pepperdine, NIL might be part of the package as well. But if NIL is what you're looking for, then Pepperdine's probably not the place for you, if that's what's most important to you.
Now, one of the last questions that I usually ask is, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that are interested in coming to Pepperdine? What advice do you want to give them that are watching the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as a piece of general advice is before you start looking at specific universities, decide what you want out of a university. Because, if what you want is a major college experience, a big school experience, then you shouldn't go to a small private school. If what you want is a high touch experience, then you should go to a small private school. And so I think it's critical that the first thing that a parent does when they're looking at a college is engage with your kid to figure out what do they want out of a college experience. And they might not know that, to be sure, but I think to narrow down there are thousands of colleges, and so to narrow down what might be right for you, choose the type of college you want and then start looking for colleges that fit that criteria. I think as it pertains to advice on students going to Pepperdine, come visit our campus. And obviously the beauty of the campus we're on that God has blessed us with is a big asset to who we are. But there's so many things beyond that make us unique. And I think visiting a campus and meeting with students and people who work there will tell you a lot more about an institution and help you distinguish where you want to be versus just looking at it on paper.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. And Pepperdine's a special place, and it's always a pleasure for me to talk about it. And thank you for the opportunity.
Sure. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.